Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Many of the most frightening and deadly creatures of legend originate in the oral stories of the Philippines. Some bear a resemblance to monsters and demons found elsewhere in world mythologies, and some seem like they could only have come from the worst of nightmares. Blood drinkers, shapeshifters, trickster spirits of the forest, demons that dismember themselves at will, and behemoth monsters so large that even heavenly bodies were their prey. This program will discuss a handful of the most frightening, most intriguing, and most bizarre monsters of Philippine mythology. We begin our program with perhaps the biggest monster of Philippine mythology, and one of the absolute largest dragons in any mythology, Bakunawa. A gigantic serpent of mythical power, Bakunawa was large enough to swallow the moon as easily as a snake swallows a mouse, and was capable of causing earthquakes and eclipses. Across the islands of the Philippines, there are a number of differing stories about Bakunawa, why the beast attacks celestial bodies, and how it is beaten back. In Cebuano lore, when the supreme god Batala set 7 moons in the sky to illuminate the nighttime world, Bakunawa rose from the depths and began to devour the moon as he came upon them. Batala bade the people of Earth to make a great ruckus to frighten the covetous dragon. The loud noises caused the dragon to retreat back into the sea, and to deter the beast from ever trying again, Batala planted bamboo upon the surface of the moon, seen today as the spots on the moon's surface. In other tellings, Bakunawa's theft of the moons centered around revenge for his sister's demise. The moon deities fought Bakunawa to avenge their siblings, but the dragon's might was not to be underestimated. In the end, Bakunawa was defeated by the combined efforts of the gods and the people of Earth, who banged their pots and instruments once more, and sent the dragon back into the ocean. Whenever the great serpent again tried to swallow the moon, signaled by a lunar eclipse, humanity would remember to raise a ruckus to scare off Bakunawa. Though giant reptilian beasts are certainly terrifying, arguably scarier is a monster that can hide in plain sight. Enter the Aswang. Aswangs were adept shapeshifters that could take the form of animals such as dogs, pigs, birds, or even human beings. The true form of the Aswang varies from region to region, sometimes appearing as a massive bird-like creature, sometimes as a smaller mammalian beast, and even as a bat-like demon with a long, sharp tongue. But being a shapeshifter perhaps allows for the beast to take one or more of these forms as it chooses. Perhaps just as unsettling as its ability to hide itself in plain sight is its hunting prowess and its food preference. Corpses, small children, even unborn fetuses. It is said that they often lurk near funeral services or at the bedside of pregnant women to drain fluids from their victims, or suck a fetus from a pregnant woman's womb. As gruesome as the Aswang is, what is perhaps the most disturbing aspect about the monster is that in some traditions, it was once a human being. In some parts of the Philippines, namely in the far-off provinces, it was believed that a person may become an Aswang via a ritual of tying a fertilized chicken egg to their stomach, and having the chicken pass from the egg into the stomach. With its uncanny hunting prowess, horrific choice of food, and ability to shapeshift, the Aswang was truly a frightening figure. Yet there are ways one could detect and defend against an Aswang attack. Despite being able to seamlessly transform into any animal, it has been said that they can be identified by their long, sharp tongues, backwards feet, and upside-down reflections in their eyes. An albulario may provide protective rituals and emblems to repel the creature, and additionally, it may also be repelled by garlic and religious artifacts. Though the term Aswang has gone on to become a catch-all name for any number of Philippine mythical monsters, in all of its incarnations, the Aswang remains a terrifying entity. A recurring monster found in horror stories across time is one that digs up fresh graves in order to devour the corpse. In Philippine mythology, that monster is given the name Balbal. Much like the ghoul of Arabian legend, the Balbal is a decrepit and humanoid creature that lurks around cemeteries and places where the dead were buried or left out in the open, such as battlefields, hiding in caves or in holes during daylight hours, and emerging at night to dig up corpses to eat. With its long, sharp claws, the Balbal can unearth a dead body in a matter of moments, eating every morsel of meat and even bone, before replacing the corpse with a banana tree log and recovering the whole. The only sign of a Balbal's presence is an overwhelming decaying smell brought on by the demon's grotesque diet. Grave-robbing monsters are universal in mythology, and are universally foul, embodying some of the world's most horrible and disturbing traits, and the Balbal is no exception to this rule. Creatures deeply associated with the wilds of the world are often tricksters that are lovely to look at, but the Tik Bong was conversely a trickster that was rather frightening. The most common depictions of the Tik Bong portray it as being an incredibly tall and lanky humanoid creature with limbs disproportionate in length to its own torso. Its head was said to be that of a horse, or at least horse-like in shape, whereas its feet were said to be massive hooves, and its eyes burned like fire. Though a bizarre-looking creature, the Tik Bong was said to be a cunning shapeshifter, appearing as a shabby vagabond, a familiar face, or an incredibly beautiful stranger. Other alleged abilities possessed by the Tik Bong include invisibility, teleportation, illusion casting, and immense physical prowess. While not particularly violent or an intentional killer of humans, the creature enjoyed cruel pranks that may lead to illness, insanity, or even death. They were notably fond of leading travelers astray and into the wild, or taking the form of a handsome horse and goading passers-by into mounting them, before taking them on a hair-raising ride through the brush and leaving them in the middle of nowhere. The Tik Bong may also resort to simply scaring the daylight out of those it may run into, and with its frightening visage and surprising creativity, there is little chance of failure. Though the Tik Bong was a powerful trickster with distinguished supernatural abilities, one may defend themselves against being tricked or harassed by them by wearing a shirt inside out, or by verbally asking permission from the Tik Bong and simply walking quietly and respectfully through the forest. Additionally, according to local folklore, a person may gain a Tik Bong's loyalty and servitude by attaining at least one of 3 golden hairs found within its mane, achieved either by wrestling with the creature, or on rare occasions, The Tik Bong may willingly give one or more of these golden hairs to someone that they deem trustworthy. But other forest monsters are not so forgiving, and are far more vengeful, such as the Batibot. Hailing from Ilocano traditions, the Batibot, or Bangungot, resembled a morbidly obese human woman, albeit more grotesque in appearance than any person could ever be. The creature would spend its days residing within trees, unseen by humans, and only coming into conflict with them when humans approached their dwelling. Should a person fall asleep beneath the Batibot's tree, or if their tree had been cut down and turned into lumber for building, the creature would sit on the person's chest while they slept, pinning them, causing them to violently suffocate under the Batibot's immense bulk, and causing nightmares unlike any the person had ever had before. Due to its vast size, the Batibot could not be removed by mere force alone, but should the sleeping person manage to overcome the nightmare induced by the demon, the Batibot would then retreat back into the forest. To ward off the Batibot, one should periodically bite their thumb or wiggle their toes, ensuring that they would awaken from the horrid nightmare. Though a ghastly creature, it was believed that the story of the Batibot originated as a possible explanation for sleep paralysis. Another tree-dwelling monster was the Capray. The Capray's appearance was quite similar to that of an ogre from European lore, being humanoid in shape and massive in size. Additionally, the beast was said to be quite hairy, adorned in a traditional Philippine loincloth, and wearing a belt that could render them invisible. Perhaps most notably, though, the Capray was usually depicted as smoking a pipe or a cigar, fireflies and atmospheric lights in the distance often being attributed to the glow of the Capray's embers. The Capray would ordinarily spend its days in and around large trees, such as acacia, mango, or banyan trees, living an omnivorous lifestyle off the forest flora and fauna. While not inherently malevolent towards humans, the Capray was still capable of being quite dangerous, namely when it felt it had been wronged, such as when loggers would cut down their preferred trees. With its great strength, the Capray could easily kill a human being, but its preferred method of dealing with humans, whether they insulted the beast or not, was to disorient them, casting a magic spell that would render the unlucky person hopelessly lost, whether it be in the wilds of the world or even on their own property. Signs one may be experiencing such a spell include hearing the rustling of leaves or seeing smoke rising from trees when no one else does, and hearing the dry, hoarse laughter of the Capray in the distance. But should someone befriend a Capray, or if the beast finds someone interesting or attractive, then they would be able to see the creature. And what's more, is that the Capray was said to carry a small white stone, smaller than a quail's egg, and any who should happen to obtain the stone would be granted wishes by the creature. Our final creature of this program is among the most disturbing creatures ever imagined in any mythology, the Manongal. Truly a nightmare, the Manongal was a bizarre abomination resembling a demonic woman with large bat-like wings, sharp fangs and claws, and a wild black mane. Even stranger, it possessed the ability to separate its torso from its lower abdomen and legs, and then would fly about the region with its entrails trailing behind. The Manongal was a man-eater, with a particular fondness for preying upon pregnant women, using its prehensile tongue, that was razor-sharp and hollow, to puncture the womb and suck out the fetus, devouring it. When hunting men, it would seduce them by transforming into a beautiful woman, enticing them into a remote or private place before eating them alive, being particularly fond of the liver, stomach, and heart. The telltale signs of a Manongal attack were a mutilated corpse with a deranged facial expression. Though the Manongal was a formidable foe, it is in fact possible to ward it away from the home, and if need be, to fight and destroy it. Uncooked rice, ash, or salt spread around the home would prevent the demon from settling on the roof. The tail of a stingray that had been made into a whip or a spear was said to be the ideal weapon, should one happen to engage a Manongal in combat. The most efficient way to kill the Manongal, however, is to destroy the lower half of its body. Before the sun rises, the Manongal must return to the rest of its body, or else it would be set ablaze by the rising sun. If the open wound of the dismembered lower half is rubbed with salt, ash, or garlic, the beast would be unable to reattach its torso, rendering it utterly helpless from the inevitable death at sunrise. All monsters are frightening in one way or another, yet the ones from Philippine mythology seem to be extra nightmarish, each somewhat resembling a monster from other parts of the world, yet each having a horrifying distinction that lets it stand out among the sea of creatures, from the moon-eating dragon Bakunawa, to the bone-eating Balbal, to tree-dwelling spirits such as the Tik Bong and the Capray, to revolting abominations such as the Aswang and the Manongal. The monsters and demons of Philippine mythology have haunted the nightmares and captured the imaginations of many generations, and will continue to do so for many generations to come.